Hey everyone, thanks for joining me. Let me show you how to make this super easy ribbon wreath. You're gonna need 3 10-yard bolts of wired ribbon. I'm using 2 that are 2.5 inch and 1 that is 1.5 inch. I have a 14-inch wire wreath form from the dollar store. And you're gonna need about 30 zip ties and a piece of floral wire. We're gonna use this for the bow at the end. I folded it in half so that there is a loop on one end. So I'm gonna set that aside and we're gonna get started. We are gonna be adding the ribbon onto the second ring from the center. It's the tallest ring if the form is sitting on the table. We're gonna start by stacking each of the ribbons. I usually do the thinner ribbon on the top. So I am going to stack them just one right on top of the other, and then I'm gonna kind of roll the bolts of the ribbon just off the table because we're gonna just use the whole roll. So you don't wanna have to pre-cut anything. So just stack it, and then we're gonna start by gathering the ribbon about 1 inch from the end. I'm gonna pinch it here, and then I'm going to add this part right directly onto the top of the wreath form, and I'm gonna use a zip tie to attach it right to the wreath form. We're gonna start where there's a little bar so that it doesn't slide back and forth. Just gonna zip tie it right on, and it should look like this. Now you're gonna keep the ribbon stacked the whole time, and I'm gonna use my hand as a guide. So the ribbon will go around your hand like this, and just loosely, not too tight. And I'm gonna pinch it and take another zip tie, and I'm gonna add it directly onto that ring. And just pull the zip tie nice and tight. And this is what it should look like now. And slide it to that bar. Now, between each bar of the wreath form, we are gonna be adding 5 loops. So I'm gonna repeat the step and just space it out to where I'm for sure having 5 loops per section of the wreath form as I go around the whole wreath. All right, so this was my 5th loop for this section of the wreath form. This is what it should look like. So from bar to bar, there should be 5 loops. Now we're gonna go to the next section, and we're gonna do another 5. And like I said, you're just gonna go around the whole wreath form until every section is filled. Now that I've made it all around the whole wreath, I'm adding my last loop. Pull the zip tie tight, and then I'm going to be cutting the excess ribbon now. I'm going to leave about an inch, inch and a half. Cut it and then kind of tuck it in so it's going towards the back bottom side of the wreath. So that's what it should look like, and I'm just going to kind of push it down and through the ring so it is not showing. All right, the next step is going to be cutting all of your zip ties. Biggest thing is don't accidentally cut through your ribbon, but you're going to want to cut the zip ties pretty close to the base, as close as you can get to it. And you're just gonna go around the whole wreath and just make sure you snip them all. All right, this is what it should look like now. Get all these zip ties out of the way. Next, we're gonna start by fluffing all of your ribbon loops. You can just pick any spot you want, and we're gonna go ahead and get started. There is gonna be a pattern to this. So wherever you start, just pull all 3 ribbons apart so they're fanned out. And then for the next loop, you're going to want to fan them out, but in a different combination. So this one has like plaid, then the yellow, and then the sunflower. And technically I accidentally skipped a loop, but I'll fan them both out at the same time. So there's 3 different ribbons, which means you're going to have 3 different combinations. As you go around your wreath form, you're going to want to repeat these in the same order that these ones are. So this next loop, I'm going to look at that first section I did, and I'm going to do plaid, then the yellow, then the sunflower. When I get to the next loop, I'm going to copy the second row. So it's yellow, and then sunflower, and then the plaid. And then again, we're gonna do the third grouping, which is sunflower, then plaid, then yellow. So you are going to continue doing this all the way around the wreath until all of the loops are fluffed. All right, now that I have fanned out all of the loops, we are gonna get started on the bow. This is what the wreath should look like. This is the back side. I am gonna use this wreath to kind of eyeball how big I want the bow. So grab all of your ribbons again, and you're gonna make sure you figure out the order that you want your bow to be. I'm gonna do the plaid on the back layer. So that's the one where you're gonna start with. You're gonna pick which ribbon you want in the back. Using the wreath as a guide, I'm gonna hold this up to it, and I'm gonna kind of figure out how long I want my tail and how big I want my loop. I don't want the loop going too far outside of the shape of the wreath. So I'm gonna make the bow so it's almost just a little bit bigger than the width of the wreath. So once I know the tail length, I'm gonna pinch just like that. Then I'm gonna figure out the size that I want the loop. Pinch it again. And then I'm gonna do a loop on the other side that is the same size. Let me move this out of the way. And we're gonna make sure the loops are the same size, make sure they match. And we're gonna pinch. Now I'm going to get my wire that I had folded in half. The loop part, I'm gonna hold with my thumb, and I'm gonna bring the ends around the bow and through the loop so it's like a slip knot. And I'm gonna tighten the wire and tie a little single knot on the top. That way when I make the next layer, I can just tie it directly onto this layer. Now the ribbon that's coming out the top, we are going to just cut. This is gonna be like a little tail. You just measure it out about the same size as your loops. So you have one long tail, a loop on each side, and then the short little tail coming out the top. Now we're gonna take the second ribbon, and I'm going to match the length of the tail, pinch, and I'm gonna do the same exact step, just the other way around. So I want the tail to come out the opposite side. So when I go to make the loop, I'm making it on the left-hand side of the bow. I use the previous layer loop to kind of guide me. Now I'm gonna add another loop onto the other side. When you're using a ribbon that has a pattern on it, you will want to twist your ribbon if necessary so that the pattern is always showing. So we're gonna pinch it again, make sure they're the same size. And I want the pattern showing, I'm gonna twist it here. And then I'm going to take this and add it directly onto that last layer I did and use the same wire to tie it on. Just do a little single knot. And then I'm gonna cut the ribbon from the roll so that I have just a little tail coming out the top of the bow again, about the same size as the other one. This is what it should look like. Next, I'm going to be adding the 1.5 inch yellow ribbon for the top layer. So I'm going to measure out the tail. I'm going to pinch it and make my first loop. I want this loop to be a little bit smaller than the other layers of the bow. I'm going to make a loop on the other side and make sure they are the same size loops. Tie it onto the bow. I'm going to double knot it since this is my last layer. And then I'm going to cut the ribbon on the top. Now I'm going to take the wire and go around all the layers, like to bring the wire to the back of the bow. And I'm going to tie a knot. And this wire is what I'll use to tie the bow onto the wreath, so you don't want to cut the wire. This is what it should look like. The next step is we're going to be cutting the tails of the bow. It's up to you if you want to add a ribbon around the center of the bow. The wire is barely showing, so I usually just leave it. I'm going to fold each end of the ribbon in half, cut at an angle, and that makes the dovetail look. Cut it a little shorter. The top of the bow, these tails, you can make them whatever length you want. I usually keep them about the same size as the loops. Now we are going to make sure the tails are the same length and dovetail them. Take your wreath. And you can pick any spot on this wreath to attach your bow. So you just set your bow on, carefully pull the wires towards the bottom side of the wreath, and you're going to tie the wire around the metal wreath form. And you can either cut the wire at this point, or I usually just kind of roll it up so it's out of the way. And that's how easy it is. You can keep your tails straight. You can add a little wave to them if you want. This is just a super easy, quick wreath for you guys. Thank you for watching. Make sure to subscribe to my channel and leave me a comment. Bye. Thanks.